I thought I was accepted by my boyfriend's friends, but when they altered my dish without asking, I realized they see me as just the kid in the group. My boyfriend, 28M, and I, 22F, met at work 2 years ago. Technically, I was working part-time during undergrad and he was a customer. But after a couple of months, we started going out. I really love this man, and nothing has happened on this scale before, so I'm very confused about it. My BF has a very tight group of friends. I am well acquainted with them and their girlfriends. One of them, Dave, just is married to Ellie. Fake names. Ellie is an excellent cook and often hosts dinners, and everyone brings a dessert to those dinners. I am the youngest in the group, so most times they brush off my requests for contributing or bringing in a dessert. However, the last time I asked Dave and Ellie if they wanted anything extra like wine or some sweet dish for dinner, they said I could bring one of those sweet dishes I make for my boyfriend. I'm Indian, and even though I can't cook as well as my mom, and I'm in a different country for studies, I called my mom up and had her teach me properly how to make a specific Bengali sweet, which is my favorite. I had my friends taste it, and they said it was great. My boyfriend ate some and said it was excellent. Except last night I greeted Ellie and kept the dish in the kitchen. When the food was brought out and my boyfriend told everyone I made it, I saw that someone had added cinnamon powder to the sweet. You never have the sweet with cinnamon powder. The dessert tasted like cinnamon, and I felt horrible. Though everyone said thank you and it was good, I think my face gave it away, and my boyfriend took me aside and said that Ellie had told him that my sweet looked too white and thought some cinnamon might bring some color into it. I don't know. I just felt awful and I started to tear up. My boyfriend then defended Ellie and said that his friends already think I'm a child and not make a big deal of this, and we will talk about it. I told him Ellie asked him first. Couldn't he have told her not to add cinnamon to the sweet? Nada. He told me he didn't think it was a big deal and asked me to drop the topic on the way home. I didn't text him goodnight, and this morning he said he was sorry and said my crying made him feel like an awful person. I don't know, now I think I overreacted. Aita? Update 1. So, I didn't text him all day after his apology, and honestly, I've been stuck thinking about the whole situation. It's not really about the cinnamon anymore, it's the bigger picture. I feel like the cinnamon is just a symbol of everything else going on. I've always felt a little bit on the outside when it comes to his group of friends. Don't get me wrong, they're nice enough, but I still feel like I'm the kid or the outsider, especially since most of them have been together forever. And yeah, I'm younger than them, but that doesn't mean I'm a kid. It feels like they see me as this little girl who's just tagging along, even though I've been dating my boyfriend for 2 years now. It's frustrating because I'm trying to build relationships with these people, and something like this just makes me feel even more out of place. But back to what actually happened. After my boyfriend's half-hearted apology, I was just so annoyed. The fact that he brushed it off so easily and didn't see why it upset me in the first place really bothered me. It's not even about the dessert being messed up, it's the fact that Ellie didn't even ask me if I was okay with her adding something to it. Like, who does that? I know she's a great cook and everything, but it doesn't mean she gets to mess with something I made without checking with me first. And then for my boyfriend to just defend her and make me feel like I was overreacting, that's where the real issue is. I tried to talk to him again that night. I told him how hurt I was that he didn't have my back. I said it wasn't just about the cinnamon, but more about the fact that he didn't even think to stand up for me or my dish. It's like he's always going to side with his friends, and I'm always going to be the one who has to get over it. That's not okay with me. I told him I felt disrespected, not just by Ellie, but by him too. And instead of really listening to me, he just said, "I don't think it was a big deal, babe. Ellie didn't mean anything by it." I mean, that's the problem, right? It wasn't a big deal to him because he doesn't understand why it was a big deal to me. This isn't just about the dessert, it's about the way I feel in this group, and how I feel like my voice is being brushed aside. Ellie might not have meant anything by it, but that doesn't make it okay. And my boyfriend not seeing that just makes me feel even more alone in this situation. I ended up crying that night, not just because of what happened, but because I'm starting to realize that this is part of a bigger pattern. Every time there's a situation where I feel like I'm not being taken seriously, he tells me I'm overreacting. Every time his friends do something that makes me feel uncomfortable or out of place, I'm the one who's expected to just shrug it off. It's like my feelings don't really matter as much as keeping the peace with his friends, and that hurts. I love him. but I'm starting to wonder if he's ever going to really get where I'm coming from. The next day, we didn't talk much. He sent me a couple of texts asking how I was, but I just didn't feel like responding. I was still upset, and I didn't want to say something I'd regret. I needed time to think. I kept replaying the whole situation in my head and wondering if maybe I was being too sensitive. But at the same time, I know that my feelings are valid. It's not fair to be dismissed just because I'm younger or because I don't have the same history with his friends that he does. Later that evening, he came over to talk. I could tell he was trying to smooth things over, but I wasn't ready to let it go. I told him that I didn't just want an apology. I wanted him to understand why I was upset. I wanted him to see that this isn't just about the dessert. It's about the way I feel like I'm being treated in his friend group. I told him that I need him to have my back, especially in situations like this where I feel disrespected. He listened, but I could tell he was getting frustrated. He said he didn't know what else I wanted from him, that he apologized, and that he didn't think it was worth fighting over. That's when I realized that maybe he doesn't get it, because he's never had to be in my position. He's so comfortable with his friends and in this group that he can't see how hard it is for me sometimes. At one point during the conversation, he said, "I think you're making this into a bigger deal than it is. Ellie was just trying to help, and now you're acting like she did something horrible." That really stung. I'm not saying Ellie did something horrible. I'm just saying she crossed a line by messing with something I made without asking. And the fact that he can't see that makes me feel like he's always going to prioritize his friends' feelings over mine. By the end of the conversation, I was exhausted. He ended up leaving because we weren't getting anywhere. I know he feels bad, but I don't think he really understands why. And that's what bothers me the most. I don't want to be with someone who can't see things from my perspective or who doesn't take my feelings seriously. I don't want to always be the one who has to let it go just to keep the peace. I deserve better than that. So here I am, still thinking about the whole thing. I don't know what to do next. Part of me wants to just drop it and move on. But another part of me feels like if I keep doing that, I'm never going to feel respected in this relationship. I love him, but I'm starting to wonder if love is enough if he can't see where I'm coming from. Update 2. After our argument, we didn't talk for a couple of days. I thought maybe some space would help, but it honestly just made me feel more disconnected from him. The more time I spent away from him, the more I started questioning everything. I've been running through all the little moments in our relationship where I've had to let things go for the sake of peace. And it's kind of overwhelming when you see it all stacked up. It's not just about the cinnamon anymore, it's about a pattern I've been ignoring. I ended up talking to one of my close friends about it. She's known me for years and has seen my relationship with my boyfriend evolve, so I trusted her opinion. When I told her what happened, she was actually more upset than I was. She pointed out something I hadn't really thought about. The way his friends treat me isn't just dismissive, it's patronizing. Like they're always treating me like I'm this young, naive girl who can't hang with them. And even though they're nice on the surface, there's always this undertone of superiority. I hadn't really framed it that way in my mind until she said it. Looking back, there were so many moments where I was treated like a kid. It was subtle stuff at first, like making jokes about me being the baby of the group or brushing off my opinions during conversations. But it's been building for a while. I guess I was just so focused on fitting in with them that I let it slide. And my boyfriend, instead of standing up for me or seeing that it was making me uncomfortable, would just laugh along with them or tell me I was taking it too seriously. I decided I needed to really think about what I want, because this isn't just a one-off issue anymore. If this is going to be my life with him, constantly feeling like I'm not being taken seriously, is that something I'm okay with? Is that something I can live with in the long run? A few days later, my boyfriend reached out and asked if we could talk. I agreed, mostly because I wanted to see if he'd had any kind of realization about what had happened. When he came over, he seemed genuinely apologetic, but the first thing he said was, "I don't want to fight about this anymore." That was already a red flag for me. I didn't want to fight either, but I also didn't want to sweep everything under the rug like he always does. I tried to explain to him how the cinnamon thing wasn't just about the food, it was about feeling disrespected by both him and his friends. I told him how it's hard for me to feel like I belong in this group when they're always treating me like a kid, and how it hurts even more when he doesn't back me up. I was being really honest with him, and I thought maybe he'd finally understand where I was coming from. But instead, he just sighed and said, "I think you're reading too much into this. Ellie didn't mean to hurt you. She was just trying to help. And my friends like you, they just joke around. It's nothing serious." That was when I knew this conversation was going nowhere. He kept framing it like I was overreacting and making a mountain out of a molehill, when really I was just trying to express how I've been feeling for months, maybe even years. I asked him if he could at least acknowledge that what happened was hurtful to me, and he kind of reluctantly said, "Yeah, I get it. You were upset, but I don't think it was worth all this drama." That word, drama, hit me hard. It felt like everything I was saying was being dismissed as me being dramatic. And the worst part is, I think he actually believes that. He truly doesn't see why I'm upset, because in his mind, none of this is a big deal. We ended up sitting in silence for a while after that, and I could tell he was getting frustrated because I wasn't letting it go. He kept looking at his phone and checking the time, like he had somewhere else to be. I asked him if he was really committed to trying to understand my side of things, or if he just wanted me to drop it so we could move on. He didn't answer right away, but eventually he said, "I love you, but I don't know why you're making this so complicated. I feel like you're trying to start something over nothing." At that point, I realized I was done. This wasn't going to change. He was always going to see me as overreacting, and I was always going to be the one who had to compromise my feelings to keep the peace. I had spent so much time trying to fit into his life, trying to be a part of his world, but he wasn't willing to do the same for me. He wasn't willing to see things from my perspective, and that's not the kind of relationship I want to be in. I told him I needed some space to think. He looked surprised, but not in the way I thought he would be. It was more like he was shocked I was making such a big deal out of this. He said, "You're really going to take a break over some cinnamon?" And that's when I knew for sure that he didn't get it. He never got it, and he probably never would. So, we're on a break now. I haven't spoken to him since that conversation, and honestly, I don't know if I want to. I feel like I've spent so much time trying to make this relationship work, but I'm the only one who's putting in the effort. I love him, but I'm starting to realize that love isn't enough if he's not willing to stand up for me or take my feelings seriously. I deserve to be with someone who values me and doesn't make me feel like I'm always the one in the wrong. I've been thinking about what my friend said, about how I've been treated this whole time, and it's making me see things in a new light. Maybe this break is exactly what I needed to clear my head and figure out what I really want. I don't know what's going to happen next, but for now, I'm focusing on myself and what I deserve. I'm done letting people make me feel small.